Good evening, everyone. Please let's all indicate if you can hear me. Good evening, Margaret. Okay, and Edith. Okay, all right. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I'm the moderator for today's session on the health tech law. Today is week one of the third quarter of the mentorship and internship program in health tech and law, and our topic for today is medical ethics, regulations, and compliance. We'll be having a mentor with us today, Mr. Ebenezer Egwatu, um, discussing the topic with us today. So I urge everyone on the call to put on their videos while we are on the call. We are still awaiting our mentors to join the call. So I'll be making few announcements while our mentors join the call and before we move on to the topic for today. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. So about the program, JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network mentorship, internship, discussion forums, industry updates, and resource materials from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. You can watch our videos on YouTube, Facebook, by just searching for JIIPCC. And some of the objectives of the program is to provide easy access, guidance, training, and resource material for students and young professionals in Africa and around the world, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarship, and job placements for the mentees. These are the objectives and about JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program. And I'll also be reading the profile of our mentor for today. He's still not on the call yet, but I believe he will be joining us any moment from now. Mr. Ebenezer Egwatu is a legal practitioner, consultant, creative writer, entrepreneur, and a passionate patent rights, patients' rights, and safety advocate. He is the principal partner, law firms, multidisciplinary consults, a legal firm that provides initiatives and cutting-edge legal solutions located in Abuja, FCT, Nigeria. He is also a medical law expert and the executive director of Lawyers Arise for the People Initiative, a patients' rights and safety advocacy NGO with its office in Abuja. Mr. Ebenezer is an associate member of the Medical Law Professional Association of Nigeria, a trained medical care assessor by International Medical Law Center, St. Kitts, North America, and currently serves as the legal team lead for Make Our Hospital Work campaign. It's a citizen-led, community-based advocacy to improve the quality of healthcare service in hospitals and primary healthcare facilities across Nigeria. Mr. Ebenezer is a patient's rights and safety advocacy. Okay, as a patient's right and safety advocacy, Ebenezer has featured as guest discussant on different radios and television stations where he sanitizes Nigerians on their rights as patients. Mr. Ebenezer has over the decades on the field experience in HIV and AIDS and patients' rights advocacy. He worked with Center for the Rights for Health, a reputable NGO that is committed to human rights advocacy, where he volunteered as program officer, legal human rights program for over a year before he resigned to focus on his active law practice and patients' rights and safety advocacy. While at CRH, he, among other things, worked as an associate editor researcher of the book The Rights of Health and Violation of Patients' Rights in Nigeria, a depth review of health-related laws in Nigeria published by CRH in 2016. He's a leader, enthusiast, and has attended different leadership training and certification. With certification, he resides in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Um, that's the profile for our mentor for today. He's still not on the call yet. I hope he joins us soon. I'll be giving the floor to our presenter for today. I hope you are ready. I hope your presentation is on point, and you can start your presentation now.
Good evening, everyone. My fellow mentees and the host. My name is Obekwa Silas, and I'm the presenter for today. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Please, just a minute. Please, I don't know if any group member can help me share the screen because I'm having issues sharing it.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen for you, so.
Okay,
I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
All right.
So, good evening, everyone. Our topic for today is medical ethics in Nigeria, the regulations and compliance. So please just take it to the next slide where we have the objectives. Thank you very much. So in today's presentation, we're going to be talking about the definition of medical ethics and its significance in the healthcare sector. We'll also be talking about ethical principles guiding the medical practice. We'll talk about the regulation bodies, also the ethical guidelines and code of conduct with Nigeria as the case study. We'll also be citing some examples, illustrating some case study examples where we have ethical issues and compliance, and also strategies for enhancing compliance with ethical studies. So please, next slide. So medical ethics, as we all can see on our screen, refers to moral principles and values that guide the conduct of healthcare professionals. As we all know, a lawless state will be a state where there will be a lot of sin, a lot of crime. So this also applies in the health sector. We need lay down rules and regulations which by the healthcare professionals can follow to guide their conduct and also the ways they render their services. It also involves making decisions that are ethically sound, respectful of patient autonomy, and is in the best interest of patients. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we'll be talking about the ethical principles. Just to mention a few, talk about justice, beneficence, autonomy, and non-maleficence. So talking about justice, justice has to do with treating everyone with fairness and equality, no matter the person's background, no matter where the person is coming from. You have to make sure that every patient or everyone in the healthcare sector gets every treatment or every resource that is shared equally, and also with fairness, without being partial in anything. Then we also have beneficence. This involves acting in the best interest of patients, and also promoting their well-being. As healthcare professionals, they are to be guided ethically and also render their best services to patients. And also anything that they do to patients, as rendering their services, should be what to promote the patient's well-being. We also have autonomy. Autonomy involves respecting patients' rights to make informed decisions about their own healthcare. This has to do with respecting each individual's decision, and also make them make informed choices about their health, because the life belongs to them, even if you're the one treating or the one rendering the service, but the patient has the right to make any decision regarding his life. So as healthcare professionals, they are meant to know this and also respect every decision of every individual. Then we have non-maleficence. This is avoiding harm to patients and also promoting their well-being. That's when healthcare professionals carry out their when healthcare professionals carry out their treatment or render their services to patients, they should try as much as possible to avoid harm and also make sure that it promotes the well-being of the patients. Next slide. So on this next slide, we have the medical regulatory bodies, where we have the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. We also have the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria, and also the Pharmacist Council of Nigeria. We also have the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria. These councils are there to regulate the practice of healthcare professionals in this field. The Medical and Dental Council regulates the conduct of doctors and dentists, while the Nursing and Midwifery, this has to do with regulating the nurses and midwives, their practices in Nigeria. Then we have the PCN, the Pharmacy Council of Nigeria. It has to do with regulating how the pharmacists carry out their services. Then the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria. This has to do with the medical laboratory professionals, how they carry out their activities, and it also keeps them in check with the ethical principles and the code of conduct. Then these regulatory bodies I listed above, they have their importance in the healthcare sector. Like I said earlier, a lawless state is a state where there will be continuous crime and sin. So these regulatory bodies are put in place to keep the healthcare professionals in check in their work, how they render services to their patients. And they also make sure that these professionals, these healthcare professionals, carry out their services according to the ethical guidelines and code of conduct. So one of the importance here is it ensures the healthcare professionals adhere to ethical guidelines and code of conduct. Like I said, this is why one of the reasons why the regulatory body is put in place, to make sure that healthcare professionals comply with the guidelines and code of conduct. It also upholds patient safety, trust, and confidentiality. When I was mentioning the ethical principle, I talked about autonomy. That's giving a patient the rights to make informed choices. So here, the regulatory body upholds patient safety, trust, and confidentiality. That means any information that is given by patients cannot be disclosed unless when there is a consent given by that particular patient. It also enhances the overall quality of healthcare services in the country, and it protects the rights and welfare of patients. So just to mention a few, this is why the regulatory bodies are put in place, just to make sure that the healthcare professionals are doing their work according to the guidelines, the ethical guidelines, and also the code of conduct. Please, next slide. Ethical guidelines and code of conduct. Ethical guidelines for medical professionals in Nigeria are contained in the code of conduct, in the code of medical ethics in Nigeria. Principles enshrined in the code. So the number one here is patient confidentiality. Like I said, every information shared by patients is meant to be confidential, unless when there is a consent given by that particular individual, the particular patient, to share this information. So you as an healthcare professional, you have no right to disclose patient's information, unless if you do this, you are going against the code of conduct, and it's against medical ethics. We also have informed consent. This is a case where a case whereby patients are told about the particular, let's say for instance, the patient is having an ailment. So as an healthcare professional, you're meant to tell the patient about the ailment and also the challenges and also the choices the person has as regards that ailment. And also you tell the person the advantages and disadvantages of the choices the person will make. Then we also have professional boundaries. This is setting boundaries with our patients, making our services. That's when healthcare professionals running our services to make sure that they are as professional as possible and maintain a line of professionalism when dealing with their patients. It also has to do with upholding professionalism and refraining from any form of exploitation or abuse. Next slide. So here we have case studies, ethical issues and complaints. Issue one, we have autonomy. This has to do with the issue of respecting the patient's rights and choice of care and the right to accept or refuse treatment, like I said earlier. So there's a case here. It said in this case, the court recognized the principles of autonomy and self-determination as ethical issues that must be respected. Please go down a little bit. So the patient's right to autonomy includes the right to refuse life-saving medical treatment. Like I said, a patient has the right to make decision about his or her life. So as an healthcare professional, you don't have a right to take decisions for a particular patient. You must give them information about the particular ailment or whatever condition they are facing, and also respect their choices. That the person can either choose to accept treatment, and also the person can choose to refuse treatment. And in any of the choice the person makes, you as a medical practitioner does not have a say in it. You just follow what the person says. Can we go to the next issue? Case two, the issue two here, we have patient confidentiality breach. Here it has to do with a law. Here a client is undergoing treatment or counseling session with an healthcare professional. So what this issue is saying in total is information shared by patients are very confidential and shouldn't be breached. That's as an healthcare professional, no matter the information given to you by a patient, you have no right at all to disclose that information to anybody at all, be it the person's friend or family member, depending on the case. So the person alone has the right to tell you to disclose that. So you doing that with your own discretion because you are a healthcare professional, or you're a healthcare practitioner rather, is breaching that patient's confidentiality, and you can be charged to court for that. Can we go to the next issue, please? Then the issue three is lack of informed consent. Informed consent means the patients or research subjects understand their health condition after much explanation by the healthcare provider, the options available to them, and the benefit and risk of each option. Like I said, the patient has autonomy. That's the patient has a right to make informed the patient has a right to make decisions by himself or herself. So an healthcare professional doesn't have any right to make decisions for anybody. The only thing an healthcare professional can do is to make sure that the person makes informed decisions, that you tell the person about the particular ailments, what are the benefits or what are the repercussions that might come from the choice the person makes. And this can be done if the person is well informed. So lack of informed consent, there's a case here, I said in this case, a surgery was performed on the claimant without authorization or consent. The court established that every adult of sound mind has the right to determine what shall be done with his or her body, and a surgeon who performs an operation without the patient's consent commits assault. So, like you said, the patient is meant to give consent before you perform anything on the person, either life-saving or otherwise. So the patient alone can give you a go-ahead. So if you as a medical professional just goes ahead like with your own discretion to just perform a particular treatment or render a particular service, that is against is against what the patient wants, then you can be, sued to court. Next slide, please. Then, yeah, we have challenges and barriers to compliance. One of them is resource constraints. We also have corruption and ethical climate. We have limited awareness and education. We're talking about limited awareness and education. In a country like Nigeria, we all know that Nigeria is a developing country. We are not as developed as the Western world. So a lot of people are not aware and are not educated about ethical principles, especially in healthcare. So even some professionals, some medical professionals don't know, some might not even know that you need consent for carrying out this, or some know, but they just feel they can just go ahead whatever they like because they are not maybe because the regulatory bodies are not functioning well, or let's say the developing country. So with the healthcare sector is limited when it comes to awareness and education. We also have the challenge of corruption and ethical climate, as you can see on the slide. Then there is also a challenge of resource constraints, where there are lack of resources in the healthcare sector. Let's go to the next slide. We have strategies for enhancing compliance. One is education and training. When we talk about education and training, we need to enlighten the public more. Let the public know more about the ethical principles, not just but also healthcare professionals. They need to be reminded about ethical principles. Let them continue to go for trainings, let them organize trainings for them, and also the public at large. Then we also have ethical decision making and framework. Yeah, we have to develop and disseminate practical framework to guide ethical decision making. There is also supportive organizational culture, and also collaboration and partnerships. Yeah, healthcare professionals, their regulatory bodies should collaborate and also put in place ethical principles and guidelines, and make the conduct of healthcare professionals run smoothly in the country. Yeah, that I feel more trainings and more enlightenment should be organized for healthcare professionals and the public at large, so everyone will be more aware of the ethical principles. Next slide. So, in conclusion, medical ethics plays a vital role in ensuring quality healthcare and patient well-being in Nigeria. Regulatory bodies, like the ones I listed earlier, are responsible for overseeing these ethical standards. Ethical guidelines and code of conduct should promote patient confidentiality, informed consent, and also professional boundaries. Compliance with ethical standards is essential to protect patients' rights, build trust, and deliver high-quality healthcare. So, ethical principles, like from the definition, these are just laid down codes, laid down rules, laid down regulations that are used to checkmate the conduct of healthcare professionals. So with the aid of the regulatory bodies like the Medical and Dental Council and other ones I mentioned earlier, this will help to keep the healthcare system booming in the country by keeping the healthcare professionals in check. And the the regulatory bodies should also make sure that they organize trainings that can enlighten the public and also enlighten healthcare professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Silas, for that wonderful, very self-explanatory slides and presentation. Thank you very much. I think while you started the presentation, our mentor joined us, so I believe he was listening to you all the way. I'll be giving the floor now to our mentor, Mr. Ebenezer Egwatu, who will be taking us through the topic today, medical ethics, regulation, and compliance. And at the end of his talk, he will also be commenting on your presentation and making any corrections on your slides. Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear
Yes,
you.
You can hear me. Awesome. Okay, I want to start by congratulating all the mentees who have subscribed for this mentorship session. I can see about 8 or 7 of you here. Okay, 6 actually, because we are 8. If you remove the moderator and myself, we have 6 remaining. Okay, so I want to congratulate you and assure you that this step you have taken is one you will live to thank yourself for taking that bold step. So open up yourself and do the research. Do the research. Learning is in the research. What we are doing here is to provide guidance and correction where you missed it. Okay, having said that, I want to commend the person who presented. I also want to commend the slide, the design. By the way, who designed the slide? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. The person that designed the slide can.
Who?
I did, sir.
What's
Okay,
the name
Mercy.
of I?
Mercy.
Okay, Mercy who?
Mercy Oladendi.
Okay, awesome. Your slide is beautiful, but there is something I need to warn you about so that you don't run into trouble. Your pictures, you picked them from the internet, of course. And you can see that there are stamps on it, on all of them. iStock, iStock, iStock. Now, why they put those stamps there is so that nobody can use this picture without paying them. So these pictures are supposed to be bought, such that when you pay, you can, if you notice when you were searching for them, you saw some amounts in dollars. Am I right?
Yes, you're right, sir.
Beautiful. So when next you're designing, there are some that do not have this. Use those ones that don't have any stamp on them. This one you use now, you have breached their rights. In fact, they see this as a stolen document. Do you get it? And if you are presenting this maybe in a seminar or international conference, the participants will look at you with one eye. That this person went to steal pictures. Yes, it is on the internet, but these pictures are for sale. That's why they put those stamps on it, so that once you put, as you put it here, I already know the source. There are some that do not have stamps, use them, or if you must use this one, you pay and use them. I hope the correction is gotten, not just for Messi, but for all of you. Apart from that, the slides are obviously beautiful. So, having said that, Mr. Presenter, what's your name, please?
My name is Silas, sir.
Mr. Ayo, okay. Busayo?
Obekwa Silas. Silas.
So, okay, Silas, awesome. Wonderful presentation. However, I noted that you were avoiding the cases. This is medical law you're doing. What you kept saying is there is a case, and you do not even make efforts to pronounce the name of the cases. You just jump, there is a case, then the court held in that case that, no, you are not reading literature. It is the case, the principles of those cases are the undergirding principles, apart from what the law has stated. The interpretation that the judges give the cases are very, very important. So when next you're presenting, do not jump any case. Do you understand it?
Yes, sir.
Familiarize yourself with the cases and the principles that were laid down or established in those cases. So having said that, you did well in your presentation. Just note that correction. Now let's go through your slides briefly and see where we have one or two things to add. On your regulatory, your definition is okay of medical ethics and what it is basically. Your definition and overview of medical ethics is very correct. But where I have issue, your principles too of the ethical principles, the four major ethical principles: beneficence, autonomy, and non-malfeasance. You pronounced it differently, but it's non-malfeasance. Then on your regulatory bodies, the first and foremost regulatory body you start with is the Federal Ministry of Health. You cannot discuss health, you cannot discuss medicine in Nigeria without talking about the Ministry of Health. After the Ministry of Health, you talk about the Establishment Act, which establishes the practice of medicine, which is Medical and Dental Practitioners Act. You cannot discuss regulation of medicine without these two important bodies or documents. Number one is the Federal Ministry of Health. So every aspect of medicine falls under them. Then the other respective disciplines in medicine, they have their established.
Can we all hear Mr. Ebenezer? I can't hear him from here.
No, sir, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay, I think we lost him. Maybe it's on network issues. So let's just be on the call for a moment and wait till he gets back. He's still not on the call yet, so we
I
are
had
still
a network
waiting.
challenge. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. I hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a network interruption, but thank God it has been rectified. So I was saying that without those establishing acts, you will not have anything like the study of medicine. So having said that, let's also at sorry, I noted something else. Okay, your constraints about challenges and barriers to compliance. You mentioned resource constraints, and you said insufficient funding for training and continuous professional development, limited healthcare infrastructure, equipment, and personnel. Can you explain that? I need you to understand what you are writing. When you are doing your research, try to process the information you see. Don't do copy and paste. Try to process the information you see. What you are picking up, is it relevant to the Nigerian environment? So I need anybody from the group. This is only one group person, right? Hussein?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so apart from the presenter, can anyone else explain what he or she understands by limited healthcare infrastructure, equipment, and personnel? Let's discuss. How does it marry it to challenges and barriers? We are discussing compliance. What is compliance in the first place? Obedience. Is it not? There are regulations already set in place. How does limited healthcare infrastructure, equipment, and personnel affect? How is it a barrier to obeying the existing law? So I do not think that is relevant there. Yes, limited healthcare and infrastructure, limited healthcare infrastructure and equipment, and limited personnel is a problem. It's a different challenge, but it is not a barrier to compliance. Do you get me? Do you understand my point?
Yes, sir.
So it is not a barrier to compliance. Insufficient funding for training and continuous professional development is not a barrier for compliance. Yes, there is need for training and retraining. Once you are a professional, you have to keep undergoing routine training. But what we are discussing here is compliance with existing laws, compliance with existing regulations. So what we can be talking about is maybe unwillingness of the practitioners to comply. The last one is lack of resources. What do you mean by resources here? Lack of resources hampers the ability to adhere to ethical guidelines and standards. Yes, it makes sense. But what were you trying to communicate when you say lack of resources? I need somebody to answer. Let us discuss. It is not a monologue. Hello?
I can hear you, sir.
Yes, I need your input. I asked a question. The first two on resource constraints are out. They do not apply. The third one, lack of resources, hampers the ability to adhere to ethical guidelines and standards. It is possible, but I need you to put it in the right context and light. So explain to me what you meant by that. Mercy.
Okay, sir. As for the,
Someone is raising his hand or her hand. Who is that, please?
it's me, sir.
Okay, awesome. So go ahead.
Okay, so as for resources, I think resources matters when it comes to creating monitoring bodies that can ensure the compliance of ensure compliance to ethical guidelines, because for there to be monitoring bodies, it requires funding, it requires a creation of a committee that would monitor these medical personnel in order to ensure that they are strictly adhering to these ethical guidelines. So it requires structure and it requires funding. So that was what I was trying to communicate.
Okay. For the third one, it applies. For the first two, it does not. Insufficient funding for training and continuous professional development. The basic requirements for training, once you have done your medical school and you're inducted as a doctor, you have been trained. Now, the subsequent trainings you are receiving is for you to grow in the profession. Now, at that basic level of training, you are expected, in fact, on the day of your induction, you are handed a copy of the code of medical ethics. So, without further training, you have been informed with, empowered with sufficient information. What is requested is action. So the point I'm making is training and retraining, while it is good, it is not a challenge to compliance. There is need for them to hear and hear. What you said, the last one, lack of resources hampers the ability to adhere to ethical guidelines. The phrasing of that last point, under resource constraint, is wrong. When you talk about adherence, adherence is different from monitoring. Now, if you said lack of resources hampers the ability of the monitoring committees to go around and enforce compliance, that makes sense. You are correct. But when you say lack of resources hampers the ability to adhere to ethical compliance, now it is correct in a sense, but that's the sense I want to bring out now. When you talk about, okay, let's look at the economic situation in Nigeria at the moment. Because of hunger in the land, people might be pushed or tempted to do some things that are unethical to get money. So that ordinarily can come under corruption. Do you get it? So if you're putting lack of resources here, let it be in respect to enforcement of compliance. Committees that go about to do supervision. Yes, I agree with this. But compliance is obedience. So I don't need funding. I don't need funding as a medical doctor. I don't need resources to respect patients' rights. I don't need resources to protect a patient's information within my custody. I do not need resources to observe ethical principles. Do you understand the point I'm making here?
Yes.
So that is it. So corruption and ethical climate, diverse cultural beliefs, agreed, and practices influence healthcare decision-making. Quite all right. Conflicting values and ethical perspectives may pose a challenge to compliance. Yes, balancing cultural consideration with ethical principle can be complex. This is fantastic. So can we discuss it? Who goes? The first one, the second one, how do these things are practical? I need you to understand this. It's not theory. It's what you meet every day when you go to the hospital. It's what you meet every day when you engage with a healthcare service provider, particularly at the primary healthcare centers in remote villages. So how does diverse cultural beliefs and practices influence healthcare decision-making? We must understand this. Now, if there's a conflict between the culture of a people and a healthcare standard, which one takes precedence? Of course, the healthcare standard takes precedence. For example, there are people who believe that the firstborn of a family the first child of a family must be delivered at home. There are cultures that believe if you marry, the very first child your wife will give birth to should not be in the hospital. Now, that is arrant nonsense, but it's people's culture. And they have their reason rooted in tradition why it should be so. Do you get it? It could be as funny as that the founder of that village, maybe a community, during the colonial era, maybe the wife was heading to the hospital and died on the road, or they delivered the baby in the hospital and the baby died. Then out of superstition, they now say every child, every male child, or every first child should be delivered at home. Now, generations after have followed that culture. One man's experience has been institutionalized as a culture, and people are following it without questioning it. And it is affecting their lives every day. People are dying because even in Christendom, there are people you hear, the Bible said we shall be like the Hebrew women. So because of that, they will not go to hospital. Even when they go to hospital, they will not subscribe to cesarean section because a pastor has told them it is their lot to deliver like the Hebrew women. Now, if you go and read your Bible very well, where that statement is mandated from, the Egyptian midwives actually told a lie to Pharaoh because they were instructed, why this we want to kill all the male child. In fact, as they are coming out at birth, kill them, let them not survive. Now, because these women had conscience and they didn't want to do that, you will not watch a fellow woman after 9 months of pregnancy, you kill the child. That's wickedness. So they felt compassion for the women and the newborn of this life to tell Pharaoh so that their lives could be spared. But in religion, we have institutionalized it and said the Bible said, I will deliver like Hebrew women. Whereas that story was actually a lie fabricated by Egyptian midwives to save their lives. So do you now see how culture comes in here? We look at conflicting values and ethical perspective may pose challenge to compliance. Now, conflicting values. For example, we have the Jehovah's Witness. Some of them are also practicing doctors. Some of them are practicing nurses. They do not believe in blood transfusion. So that value can hinder them from complying. So if there are people we call conscientious objectors. So because of my value system, I object to this. It does not agree with me. It does not agree with my value system. Then balancing cultural consideration with ethical principles can be complex. Yes, I agree. Limited awareness and education, lack of awareness about ethical guidelines and code of conduct. Okay, insufficient education and training on medical ethics during professional development. Fantastic. Very, very correct. Because while medical ethics is important, they don't give it the sufficient attention that is needed. There is this assumption. We have been championing for curriculum overhaul for medical schools so that this becomes an integral part. Yes, they teach it, but they concentrate bulk of the time on every other subject. So ethics is just, it assumes that you ought to know. So it's lost over. So there is need for inadequate knowledge can contribute to non-compliance and ethical dilemmas. No, when you say inadequate knowledge, is it on the part of the healthcare professional? Before you are certified, there is a presumption that you know because you have written and passed your exams. So that's it. Strategies for compliance, education and training, fantastic. Okay. Ethical decision making, fantastic. Supportive organizational culture. Okay. Awesome. Collaboration and partnership. Okay. You missed out something. What about punishment for defaulters? Don't you think it will enhance compliance? Why is the Medical and Dental Council Tribunal set up? It is for the defaulters, that where there is a discipline or punishment for defaulters, where there is default in compliance leading to harm to the patient and the patient complaints, there should be a penalty for that, which in some cases is suspension, in some cases withdrawal of license, some cases caution, some cases a practitioner's name is struck out of the list, as in the person will no longer be a practicing medical doctor. His name will be struck off the roll. So you missed that out. Strategies for compliance. Then routine enforcement visitation. You missed that out. We talked about committee earlier. So routinely, there should be committees that go about to supervise and ensure compliance. So you add those two. Conclusion, medical ethics plays vital role in ensuring quality care and patient well-being in Nigeria. The regulatory bodies like the Nursing and Medical Council are responsible for overseeing ethical standards. Yes. Ethical guidelines and codes of conduct promote patient confidentiality. Consent and professional boundaries. Are you sure? Okay. Compliance with ethical standard is essential to protect patients' rights, build trust, and deliver high-quality healthcare. Awesome. This is fantastic, but I hope the corrections are well noted.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there are questions, I will be glad to entertain them. Any questions? Are there questions? Hussaini, where is our moderator?
So
Okay.
thank you very much, sir, for the correction and also the more enlightenment on the topic for today. I believe our presenter has taken down the corrections from the PowerPoint, and also the research team would make more better research in the future. So quickly, before we move on to the question and answer session, I'll urge everyone to put on their videos. We take quick screenshots. I'll be taking the screenshots from here for our social media posts after the session. Kindly smile for the camera while you're turning on your video. Thank you. All right.
Okay, just by way of information, it will help you. On Thursday,
Okay, sir.
last Thursday, I had a training for senior nurses and the management staff of University of Abuja Teaching Hospital. That's directors, deputy directors, managers, and coordinators. I posted it on my Facebook. Go and read what I posted, particularly what amount medical nursing negligence, because I talked about negligence in nursing, changing the narrative. So my Facebook account, my name here, Ebenezer Iguatu. Go look it up. That's the last post I made on Thursday. You read the post. You can pick one or two things. I made a list of what constituted negligence in nursing. We are talking regulations. I know that with time we'll talk about patients' rights and all that, but go and read that. It will help you in your research. So, Hassan, go ahead with the questions.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'll be taking the first question, and I'll also be posting the question very soon on the chat box. Question number one is that following this scenario, A is the father of B, a child who is suffering from a chronic disease that needs an emergency surgery. The only solution was to transfuse blood so that the child can be able to undergo the surgery at the moment. At that moment, after being properly checked, the child's father objected and said that according to his belief, blood transfusion is a sin. Being the father of the child A decided to take his child home instead of the surgery. The doctor saw that the child, if not treated immediately, would die. The doctor transfused blood and ordered that the child be operated on. So the question A is that would the doctor be liable if the child dies, and would he be liable if the child survives? That's question one. Then this question two there is that can the hospital as a whole be um, vigorously liable if later founded that the doctor acted negligently that the result to the child's death?
Okay, first question, would the doctor be liable if the child dies?
Yes.
Then what's the second question? Would the doctor be liable if the
Would
child
the
survives?
hospital? Yes, if the child survives, if the child dies, that's question one. Then the
Okay.
second part of the question is the hospital as a whole, if they will be viciously liable if founded that the doctor acted negligently and that results to the child's death.
Okay, awesome. Now, this question keeps recurring in different sections that we have. This question keeps recurring. I remember in the last session, I gave them a case to go and study. And that's exactly what I will do now, because this question has been determined by the courts, from high courts to Court of Appeal to Supreme Courts. Now, whether the doctor will be liable if the child dies. The doctor will not be liable if the child dies, provided that the doctor was not negligent. Now, if the doctor transfuses the child and does what he is supposed to do, following the correct procedure and standard of medical practice to treat such ailments, if the child dies, the doctor will not be liable. Now, if the child survives also, the doctor will not be liable. But if it is found out that the doctor was negligent, even though he was treating the child or doing something good, the best intention to save the life of the child, it does not matter that the doctor was trying to save the life of a child. If the doctor was found to be negligent, he will be liable for negligence. Even if the child survives and the doctor was negligent in some parts, he will be liable for negligence. Now, whether the hospital as a whole will be vicariously liable for the conduct of the doctor, the answer is yes and no. If the doctor is an employee of the hospital, the doctor is an employee of the hospital, the hospital becomes vicariously liable. But if the doctor is an independent contractor, which is what happens in most cases, these doctors, because of the scarcity of healthcare service professionals, particularly different areas of surgeons, different areas. Okay, you have the neurosurgeons, there are very few. You have the cardiologists, there are very few. So you do not employ them solely. Okay, you are working in hospital A. For that reason, you are solely and strictly attached to this hospital. You cannot provide your services here or there. Now, what happens in most cases is that these doctors work as contractors with hospitals. They are independent contractors Now, if the hospital needs their services, they come perform those services and leave. Go to another hospital, perform those services and leave. Now, if the doctor is established to be an independent contractor, he will be strictly liable for his negligent conduct. But if he's an employee of the hospital will be vicariously liable. That is the position. So in the case of Esabuna against Fayewa, it was a Jehovah's Witness. The case involved the Jehovah's Witness family. The family had a baby who was ill, and within 3 weeks, the child needed blood transfusion to survive. The parents declined that, saying that they are Jehovah's Witness and they do not subscribe to blood transfusion. But the doctor, in his wisdom, felt that this child should not be allowed to die. So the doctor went to court, obtained a court order, giving him powers to transfuse blood to the child. And that's exactly what he did. After which the family went to court, sued the doctor, sued the magistrate that gave him the order to transfuse the child. And the court held that the doctor was right, that the child has no religion, because that child was a minor, that the child has no religion at that age and could not be, his or her life should not be subjected to the parents' religion. To now say, we are Jehovah's Witness, you can't transfuse. So that was it. Yes, I will type the case, don't worry. Everybody, you will research, you will study it, I will type it, don't worry. Yes, let's continue.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'll be taking the second question. And while I'm taking the question, I also encourage our mentees to ask any question, any live question
Yes,
they have.
there are live questions you can ask.
Question 2 says, how can a medical professional ensure that they get or stay up to date with standard and latest guidelines?
Oh, awesome. Personal development is key. Personal development, research, and research. 1, subscribe to journals. 2, be a member of your professional body. Not just a member, be an active member of your professional body. The NMA is the Nigerian Medical Association. Go and register as a medical professional. Now, not just to register and pay a monthly fee or practicing fee or whatever they call it. No, be an active member. Then also research to know what is happening in other jurisdictions. Look at tech development. What are the advancements in technology as it relates to medicine? What are the newest discoveries? So research, subscribe to journals, attend international conferences, not just local conferences. Attend international conferences on your area of specialization. That way, you will be kept abreast with newest developments and you will be up to date in your practice. Also, have mentors, those who are ahead of you in your practice, and also have professional colleagues as friends, not just as professional colleagues, but as friends with whom you exchange and crossbreed ideas. That is it.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'll be taking the third question. I'm still awaiting our mentee's live question. If you have any live question, kindly just raise your hand. So I'll call on you to ask your question. Thank you very much. Question 3 says, how can a medical professional ensure that they are providing the best possible care to their patients while also upholding ethical principles?
Okay. How can a medical professional ensure that they are providing the best possible healthcare to their patients and also upholding ethical principles? Number 1 is have the presence of mind. Have the presence of mind. Now, what it means is When you are leaving your house to the office, leave the problems at home, go to your office. In the training I had on Thursday, I made them chant as a slogan, the patient is king, the patient is king, the patient is king, the patient is king. And they chanted it. Now, why you went to study medicine, you might have a different reason. You might just want to answer doctor. I had a classmate in the university who told me that the only reason why he came to study law is so that when he's going to contest the election, they will put barrister in his poster. That's what brought him to study law. The guy was already an established businessman, but he wanted to go into politics. He felt what will boost his chances as a candidate in his community is when they put barrister in his poster. So you now see that people have different reasons why they do what they do. Now, if you came from a family background that is not too established or well-to-do, when this man who is just looking for barrister is playing, if you follow him and play, you will be wasting your time, because what he's pursuing is not what you're pursuing, even though you are in the same class. So somebody might want to study medicine because his father wants to answer Baba Doctor. His mother wants to answer Iya Doctor. That's good. The person may want to answer doctor, but the moment you decide to practice medicine, you are bound by the ethical rules. So to draw a reasonable balance, one, familiarize yourself with the rules of professional conduct. Two, have the presence of mind that why you are in this business now is because of the patient. The patient is your employer, even though you are working in a hospital. It's the patient that pays your salary. So when you hold the patient that high, also see your professional discipline as a calling.
I can't hear our mentor on the call. I don't know if he's still on the call. Can we all hear him?
I can hear him also.
All right, I think he's still having a network glitch, so let's just give him a moment to join us back.
Sorry, I had a call that interrupted my flow. So see sickness as a patient and see yourself as the life giver. So it's about mindset conditioning. Then always know that there is or there are consequences for flouting the rules of professional conduct. So would you want your name to be do you want to appear before the disciplinary committee of your profession? The answer is no. So make up your mind on the type of doctor, on the type of nurse, on the type of healthcare service provider you want to be. So that is what will determine is individual decision. Okay, this is the type of doctor I want to be. This is the type of nurse I want to be. I have attended sessions of the Medical and Dental Council Tribunal. I've attended their panels when they are trying airing doctors. And I must tell you, it is not funny. Sometime that was April last year, a professor of medicine, his name was struck off the roll of doctors in Nigeria for medical malpractice. So when you look at the consequences of flaunting the professional ethics or code of professional ethics, you will just advise yourself not to do it. The enticement is money. So once you are contented and know that you can get your daily bread from decent practice, we have no reason to veer into malpractice or negligence or flaunting the professional misconduct. I think that will be all for that question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer, for the answer. I'll be taking the last question while I'm still awaiting our mentees to send in their questions as we are still on the call. Since a medical professional is expected to act within the scope and regulation of the medical profession section 33 of 1999 Nigerian Constitution, since
Take that
everyone...
question again.
Okay. Since a medical professional is expected to act within the scope and the regulation of the medical profession, Section 33 of 1999 Nigerian Constitution says everyone has right to life and no one should be deprived intentionally of his life. On that note, can mercy killing be justified as ethical?
Okay, firstly, the person didn't complete that section 33 of the 1999 Constitution. The person did what we call cherry picking. He quoted the aspect that favored his question. There are exceptions. There are exceptions. There are provisos to that constitutional provision on where somebody's right to life could be, I wouldn't use the word violated, but could be vitiated. Yes, there are exceptions to that. One. Two, a mercy killing, also known as euthanasia, is a crime in Nigeria. At the moment, it is a crime in Nigeria and is not allowed. So, however, in some other parts of the world, there are countries that mercy killing is allowed. But in Nigeria, as we speak, it is a crime. So anybody who does that, it has nothing to do, anybody who does that is actually a violation of Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution, and the person could go in for murder because the person knew the consequences of his action and it was predetermined or premeditated. So the person could go in for murder. Mercy killing is not allowed in our laws. As we speak, it is a crime. So that's that. If there are other questions, any of the mentees could ask.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer, for being with us from the beginning of the session to now, for answering all our questions and for making the topic very understandable to us, the mentees. I'll be waiting for more questions, but if we don't have any more questions, we can always drop any questions that we have on the chat box. Mr. Ebenezer is on our general group chat, so he will
I'm going to
be...
drop the case and the citation on the group chat. So look for it, search for the Court of Appeal decision, search for the Supreme Court decision, read them up. In our next session, we start with your findings. And do you agree with the reasoning of the courts? I want you to, don't just soak in what I am saying. Under the challenges and barriers, okay? Hassan, could you read that?
Okay, I think also Evie's hand is raised, so I would give her the chance to ask a question first.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, I can ask a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Good evening. Could you turn on your video?
Okay. Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Mr.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my question is regarding the medical and dental disciplinary tribunal, for example, as a regulatory body. I know that they have quasi judicial arms, But I wanted to ask, like, if I have maybe
You say you
I
know what?
said I know that it has a past like a judicial kind of extension. That's the disciplinary tribunal for
Yes.
doctors, dentists. So I wanted to ask
Yeah.
that in case where a person has a grievance against a doctor for maybe negligence or this thing, does he always like the question is in two parts. Does the person first does the aggrieved person first take his grievance to the court or to the
Medical and
tribunal?
Dental Council. Okay.
Yes. Okay, to the medical and dental council. Yes. Does he first take it to the court? Who is the first point
Court
of
of calls. Okay.
yes, who is
Awesome.
the point of for a
Okay.
for an patient?
An aggrieved patient.
Yes.
Okay.
Then my second question is it every issue concerning medical and dental practitioners that the council and tribunal deal with? Is it every issue, or are there grades of issues also? Maybe the hospital the doctor is working in, maybe they have a kind of machinery for dealing with professional malpractice, or everything is just handled by so far it concerns a doctor in Nigeria, medical and
Okay.
dental.
Okay.
Those are my
Okay. Understood. Let me start with the second question. Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria regulates doctors only. They have no jurisdiction over hospitals. They have no jurisdiction over nurses. They have no jurisdiction over pharmacists. They have no jurisdiction over other healthcare service providers. So they regulate doctors only. Now, that means that the only person you could report to them has to be a medical doctor, not a nurse, not a pharmacist. Having answered that, your first question, whether you can start with them or with the courts, you can do the two simultaneously. You can file a complaint before Medical and Dental Council, and at the same time, go to court in pursuit of the same claim. However, it is usually advisable that you conclude your Medical and Dental Council case, because if his professional colleagues, if he's found liable before the Medical and Dental Council, it becomes an evidence for you. You can attach the decision of the tribunal and say even his professional colleagues have already found him guilty of this. So it helps your case before the courts. However, the two can go simultaneously. You can file a case before them. Now, the Medical and Dental Council, what you do is you file a complaint. It comes in an affidavit form. When you file it, there we look at your complaint and send that complaint to the doctor against whom you have complained, and the doctor will also file his responses in an affidavit form saying this happened. Then the council will look at what the doctor has presented. If there is a prima facie case, a tribunal will be constituted. He will now face the tribunal. But if the doctor looks at your complaint, the council looks at your complaint and found out that there is no basis, there is no substance in the claim, then your claim will be dismissed. So the person against whom the complaint is laid does not face the tribunal. So that is how it operates. But you can't file a case in court while you are pursuing your claim in court. You can file an action before the Medical and Dental Council. But it's always advisable and better that you conclude, you get the verdict of the tribunal to say, okay, the tribunal has found you liable, and for that reason, you are suspended from practicing medicine for the next 6 months, or your license is hereby withdrawn. when you are now filing your suit in court, you can attach that to show the court that even his professional colleagues have already found him guilty. So I now want this court to pronounce in my favor and grant me XYZ as damages for the harm done. Then if it is a malpractice issue, the police is involved because they are basically for court or litigation approach to redress. You have the criminal litigation approach where there is maybe permanent damage to an organ. I can't hear you.
No, explain me like as you were explaining like permanent damage to an organ. I'm like, wow, like, I did not know.
Okay, so there is, for example, where there is clear case of medical malpractice, like organ harvest. Someone goes to hospital for surgery, you open the person up and remove one of his kidney without his knowledge. So that is medical malpractice, and it's a criminal offense. So the person can be found liable. Causing grievous bodily harm is an offense under the criminal code. So the person can be found liable criminally. So what it means is that if the person is convicted, the person will go to jail. But the patient does not get any compensation. But if it is a civil claim, the patient can claim damages for harm done, for loss of earning and all that. And the court can award compensation to the patient or to the claimant or to the plaintiff in that regard. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it answers my question. But it also gave rise to another question. You said there is criminal. No, I said it answered. It also gave rise to another question. You mentioned civil proceeding, criminal proceeding. Is it possible to do both of them at the same time?
It depends on the nature of the case. You see, it is the facts. It is the facts of the case that determines where it falls into.
Now like this.
Do you understand it?
I'm the
It is the
cleanest boy
fact
in
of the
Earth.
case. Now, if it is a case of organ harvest, it's a criminal case. If it's a case of murder, it is a criminal case that the doctor or the healthcare provider, you are able to establish that the person deliberately killed this patient or did a procedure on the patient knowing that the outcome of what he was doing is going to be death. That is murder. So there's nothing civil about it. It's a criminal case. In that case, the police will be invited to investigate.
But you
when the police is done with their investigation, if there is a case established against the doctor,
yes, no.
and tried him as a criminal, if he's found guilty by the court, he goes to jail. Now, if it does not involve if it's negligence per se, it does not involve loss of organ, and maybe it involves, let's say, medication error. You are given a medication that causes allergy or that makes the person not to go to work for many days. Or maybe a person was given a medication that could make him dizzy. Good, you are in a car now, God forbid. You are driving and you went to hospital, not you, somebody went to hospital, and the person was given a medication that will make the person dizzy. The doctor did not explain to say, this medication will make you dizzy. So once you take it, sleep in your house, don't go out. The doctor didn't give that instruction. Now that's negligence. The person now takes the medication, enters the steering and sleeps off and has an accident. The doctor can be sued for that. Now, it is not a criminal offense. It is a civil offense. What it is a civil claim, rather. So what could be done, part of what you could be claiming is the damage caused to your vehicle, because his simple refusal to caution you about the effect of the drug on you made you to go to drive, and in driving, you had an accident. Now, when you are proving negligence, there are four things you need to establish. Number one is duty of care. The doctor owes me a duty of care, part of which was to communicate the adverse effect of the drug on my body. Now, breach of duty of care. The doctor breached this duty he owes me by not communicating. The doctor didn't tell me that this will be the effect of the drug, so that's a breach of duty of care. Now, because the doctor breached duty of care, there is an accident, which is harm. Now, is there a link between the doctor refusing to inform me and the accident? Yes, that is causation. Once you establish this before the court, you have judgment in your favor. So it is not in every case that it's all the facts of the case determines the nature. What you can do in some cases is the person could be before the Medical and Dental Council undergoing disciplinary questioning. Then you can file a suit in court. But like I said, it is always advisable to complete the professional discipline, so that if it comes out in your favor, you can attach it as a further proof to courts that even his professional colleagues has already found him guilty, and this is the verdict they handed down to him. So that is it. Does that answer your question now? Hello?
Yes, I does. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. No, the Medical and Dental Council, they do not award compensation. No, they don't. They discipline their professional colleagues. They do not award compensation to victims. No, they don't. It is the doctor that they deal with, because the doctor has run foul of the code of professional conduct or ethics. So it is just disciplinary. And depending on the degree of the offense of the doctor, that determines the penalty to be handed or the disciplinary measure to be handed. In some cases, it is caution. In some cases, it is suspension. In some cases, it is withdrawal of license. In some cases, it is that the person's name is struck off the register and the person will no longer practice as a doctor. How many of you have heard about Dr. Abalaka? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, how many of you have heard about Dr. Abalaka? Huh? Who is speaking, please? Someone was speaking. I can't hear the person clearly.
I said no, sir.
Nobody here has heard about Dr. Abalaka. Okay, well, he claimed to have founded a cure for HIV/AIDS. That was in early 2000s.
Sir, I think your voice is breaking too, sir. Your network is like
okay, so
fluctuating.
I think it's network challenge then. So he claimed to have founded the cure for HIV/AIDS, and that medication was not approved by any of the certifying bodies, whether NAFDAC, whether international bodies that were supposed to regulate and approve the medication for use. So he was cautioned not to use the medication or parade himself or advertise the medication as curing HIV/AIDS. But he went ahead to do that, and people were actually trooping to his place to receive the medication that it cures HIV/AIDS. And the Medical and Dental Council felt that no, this shouldn't be. And his license to practice medicine was withdrawn. So that is just one example of such. So he can no longer practice medicine in Nigeria. He cannot run a hospital. He cannot do any, he cannot prescribe. He cannot do it. If he does it, he will now be doing it as a quack. And he will be arrested for quackery because he is not licensed or certified to practice medicine. So that's it. Any other question? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. My question is that in this case, Okonkwo versus Medical and Dental Practitioners Disciplinary Tribunal, the court held that autonomy, patient autonomy, includes the right to refuse life-saving medical treatment. But earlier in your discourse, you said that euthanasia was a crime, and euthanasia is a situation whereby a terminally ill patient decides to end his life in order to stop his suffering. So isn't this a sort of conflict of interest?
No, it is not.
Okay,
now,
sir, please, can
patient's
you
autonomy. Yes, I will explain. Patient's autonomy is the right of the patient to determine what happens to his body. In fact, under one of the rights the patient has, Section 30 of okay, that's complaints. Section 30 of the National Health Act, the patient can complain. Now, under the Patient's Bill of Rights, you have a right to refuse medical treatment as a patient. That right is also recognized in the Code of Medical Ethics. Doctors are told, when you meet Jehovah's Witness and they refuse to, please respect their rights. Do you get it? In fact, doctors are expected to inform the patient. Under a patient's right to information, part of what you are supposed to know is that you have a right to receive this treatment, to refuse treatment. Now, that right is activated provided that the patient is of sound mind as at the time you are making that decision, that you are an adult of sound mind and you are not under the influence of anything, and you are not making that decision because you are having suicidal thoughts and you just want somebody to kill you. Now, if you are in your sound mind as an adult, you can refuse treatment. The hospital will not force you. In fact, if you refuse treatment now and you come back tomorrow to say, now I want to continue my treatment, the hospital is bound to accept you and continue the treatment. Do you get it? That's on a patient's right to refuse treatment. Euthanasia is a doctor actively killing a patient by his action or inaction on the request of the patient. Now, the Hippocratic oath that doctors take upon induction, you have taken an oath to save life, to serve humanity with your talents, with your knowledge, with your expertise, that you will not use this expertise against humanity. Do you understand it? Now, euthanasia is the patient requesting the doctor to kill him or to kill her. Now, I wouldn't go into types of euthanasia. I wouldn't go into that. But then it is for the doctor to either actively or passively. Those are actually the two broad categorization. Active euthanasia, where an injection is administered or something is done, or you pull maybe the person is on oxygen or life support, you pull the sockets and it ends there. Now that is active. Passive euthanasia is maybe stop gradual withdrawal of the medication, the drugs that is supposed to sustain the person. Gradually, those things are being withdrawn. The things that are supposed to sustain the person, aid his healing and treatment, gradual withdrawal of those things, that's passive euthanasia. At the end of the day, the person just dies. But while you are taking that step, you know that the end product is death. And that is contrary to the Hippocratic oath you have taken as a healthcare service provider or a doctor. So you now see that there is no conflict. There are two different things. That you have autonomy. You cannot authorize somebody to kill you. You know that attempted suicide is a crime in Nigeria. It's your life. Oh. If you succeed in killing yourself, nobody will punish you. The person is dead. But attempted suicide, you were trying to kill yourself and they catch you. They will take you to court and try you for committing an offense, trying to take your life. Attempted suicide is a crime. So do you understand? Is it clear now? Hello,
Yes, sir,
Mercy.
it's clear. Yes,
Okay,
it's clear.
awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. So any other question? Hello. Hassan, could you read what is on the chart that says under the barrier and compliance?
Okay,
Okay, so
sir. My network has been kicking me out of the meeting.
so
It's been on and off, on and off. So
under the
I'll try and read
challenges
it.
and barriers
Under the
in
challenge
regards
and
to
barriers in
compliance.
regards to compliance,
Go ahead, continue.
consensus objection was highlighted, and this is basically practitioners not providing certain treatments to patients.
Yes.
Hello, can we all hear me? I'm back on the meeting, but I can't even see the chat, anything on the chat because I was logged out.
Okay, let me read it. It says, under the challenges and barriers in regard to compliance, consensus objectors was highlighted, and that is basically practitioners are not providing certain treatments to patients based on their conscience or morals. And I would like to ask if it is discriminatory, if that isn't against their professional conduct. No. Okay, I just told you now that Jehovah's Witness, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just told you now that Jehovah's Witness people, which you all know, they do not subscribe to blood transfusion. They don't subscribe to blood transfusion. So if you now have a Jehovah's Witness as a medical doctor, that is his belief. He is not discriminating against any person.
Okay,
He
sir.
is just
I don't
saying,
know if we've answered Edith Margaret's question. I was seeing the question before,
Edet,
but
please
when
ask
I
your
was
question.
Could
Good evening, sir. So I
Good
was
evening.
asking, like, I don't mean in terms of religion. I mean, like, take for instance, the person is a Muslim and maybe I'm a Christian, and then the person is like, based on the fact that we practice different religions, or I don't know, let me use like being racist now. Let me just use like different places. So take for instance now I'm in Nigeria and then my doctor is an American, but because he sees me as a black person, he's being racist now. Is that not that's discriminatory? So is that not going to be against his professional conduct? Because I don't think that's
It is against his professional conduct. It is against his professional conduct. It is against his professional conduct because he is not supposed to consider race, religion, sex into consideration, political or socioeconomic standing. Those things are not supposed to be brought into consideration before treating a patient. Do you understand it? So if a healthcare service provider says, I will not treat you because you are black, that is discrimination. That is against your rights. So you can take it up. If a Christian says, I won't treat you because you're a Muslim, and vice versa, that is discrimination. That is against your rights, and you can take it up. If someone says, I can't treat you because you are from XYZ state, because you are a woman, I treat only male, that is discrimination. That's against your rights. You can take it up. Is
okay.
that clear?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. Awesome.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer. We are still taking in any questions before we end the session for today. Okay, so we'll be expecting the case that you'll be sharing
Yes,
for us
I will
to
drop
make
it on
our
there.
research and findings
And I expect
on
everybody
the
to read
group
it.
chat tonight.
It's an interesting
With
case.
that being said, thank you very much once again, Mr. Ebenezer. Thank you
With
very much
the
for everyone that
citation.
stayed until the end of the class. Thank you very much, Silas, for the presentation today. The week two the week two topics will be sent to the group tonight so that we can start research on that also. That will be the end
Before you go,
of the
Hassan,
meeting for
where's
today.
Messi?
Have a good evening, everyone, and bye-bye.
Can you hear me? Before you end the session, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your voice was
Okay.
breaking. I can hear you now.
Okay. Where's Messi? I usually have volunteers who would, if not by force, of course. If you are beyond Messi, if you know you are good in slides or graphic designs, and you would like to volunteer for our organization, I usually give that opportunity for mentees to try their hands on. What it means is that if I have a presentation to make somewhere, I develop it and I send it to you and you put them in slides. Now, what that does, I have had people do that. In fact, one is still with me now. So I'm not doing this because I'm lacking somebody. One in the just immediate past session, Mercy Frederick, coincidentally, her name is Mercy. She does our slides. She has consistent. She has said, I'll just be doing it. But I want to give that opportunity to someone also, because what he does is beyond what you're learning in this class. Okay, I went to talk about negligence in nursing practice. It is not a subject for this class. It is not in your curriculum. But when she has that in developing the slide, in preparing the slides, she goes through the content and her feedback. In fact, the day of their graduation, she mentioned it as one of her major benefits through this session, the opportunity of preparing my slides. So if there's anybody here that will want to key into that, provided that your time accommodates it. If you have something serious that engages your time, maybe you are in school, you're preparing for exam, or you are learning a vocation, or you're doing something that does not give you that time, please do not volunteer. So I needed to bring that up in case somebody is interested in doing that. So thank you very much. Hassan, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity that have been provided to our mentees. Thank you very much, everyone, for being with us to the end of the session. That will be the end for today. We'll meet the same time next week, Sunday, by 4 p.m. Let's all prepare for our next class. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
It's
Bye-bye.
okay.